Good evening, Cameroon. Good evening, Africa. You're watching Prime Hour on My Media Prime TV with me, Kum Leonard, for a presentation. Tonight, we're going to be looking at what is happening in the Middle East. The U.S. war against Iran. Anyway, I was going to say U.S. and Israel war against Iran. What is not working well as far as peace for the world is concerned. So many calls have been made over the decades for the world to experience peace, yet we keep finding wars left, right, and center. We are already aware of the war between Israel, Hamas, and Hezbollah. We are aware of the war between Russia and Ukraine. We also are aware of the war that is ongoing between Afghanistan and Pakistan. And today we're talking about a war that is ongoing between the United States of America, Israel, and Iran. What is not working well? Where is the United Nations organization, and where is the international law guiding the relationships between the war powers? What is America after? What is Israel after? And what has Iran got under its sleeves to counter these provocative attacks from these two nations? We are going to be discussing this with our panelists who are with me in the studio. We have Mr. Aka Tazi Aloysius coming all the way from Boya. He is a maritime expert. Good evening. We're glad to have you.
Good evening, Mr. Liu and my co-panelists. Thank you very much for inviting me. We hope that at the end of this, we'll be able to have shared our own opinions on these issues, because at times we may feel that this war is very far, but the way where events are turning, we need to also feel that it can be by our doorsteps at any time soon. So we have to be very, very aware of what is going on in the geopolitics of the world of today. Thank you.
Tamai Jarvis, who is also following up very closely what's happening. We are glad to have you with us.
Good evening, Mr. Kum. Good evening to Mr. Tazi and all those who are watching us. It is a very difficult time for our brothers and sisters who are already in the UAE, who are in Bahrain, who are in the different parts of the Middle East. It's a difficult time. I want to tell them that courage, brothers and sisters, do not stumble, because I understand that they are passing through a strong, difficult moment right now. I want to seize this opportunity to wish a very big happy birthday to Mr. William Ayong. Mr. William Ayong, a very big happy birthday as he celebrates his birthday today, and many more years to you, Pa William Ayong, as you celebrate your birthday. And also good evening to the Bishop of Boya, His Lordship Michael Bibi, and be happy that the Pope is coming to Cameroon. And you see, the Archbishop, His Grace, is currently in the room to discuss on some of the issues and to prepare for the way for the Pope. Also, Tambe Sandrine, happy birthday to you, Tambe Sandrine, many more years.
We also are going to be discussing with Dr. Stanley Fongot, who will be participating from the United States of America. I don't know whether he's connected. Doctor, if you're there, good evening and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Yes, I am connected. I hope that it holds sway as we continue, and thank everyone in the studio as well. So I appreciate the invitation, sir.
Okay, just to note that Dr. Stanley Fongot is a finance scholar, entrepreneur, and a public commentator specializing in global economics, African development, financial system, and geopolitics. He holds a PhD in finance and accounting, and is the founder of Croston FinTech, a technology company developing financial infrastructure solutions for emerging markets. We are glad to have you, Doctor, all the way from the United States of America. Professor Mark Anthony is also supposed to be part of this program. I don't know, he may be caught in traffic, but let's dive straight to what we have to discuss this evening. Mr. Aloysius Tazi, does the U.S. and Israel military action against Iran breach key principles of international law, such as the UN Charter, prohibition on the use of force? What legal argument supports or opposes this view?
Yeah, I think they breach all those legal instruments with absolute impunity. Remember that this Iran issue, the issue of Iranian nuclear program has been on the table in international politics for a very long time. And there was this arrangement, the 5+1 arrangement that was negotiated by the previous, I think it was negotiated by, yes, the P5+1 arrangement that was negotiated by, I think, the Obama administration. Yeah, so that in that arrangement, Iran had to open all their nuclear, because Iran argued that their nuclear program was for energy generation and peaceful. So in that arrangement, Iran had to open up to their nuclear program to international atomic energy inspectors. And as of the last reports, up to when Trump came to power and walked out of that arrangement, Iran was 100% in compliance, according to international atomic energy reports, that Iran opened to all their nuclear facilities to their inspectors, and they were everything was in place. On the other hand, the other parties had to uplift the sanctions so that Iran could trade freely in the international arena, the international markets. And this was not done, mostly, particularly by the United States government, their sanction state. So when Trump came to power his first term and walked out of the arrangement, Iran said, okay, if you walk out, and at that time there was a lot of arguments here and there. Like the Europeans were actually not happy with the Americans, because the Europeans thought that no, Iran has been in compliance of this arrangement all this while. Why do you have to walk out of it? There was a lot of tension between Europe and America during Trump's first term. And because of that now, Iran said, okay, so you are the one who breached the contract, you did not uplift the sanctions. We respected our part of the bargain, and you didn't even respect yours. Despite that, we were still on board, but you've breached it. And then Iran went on with their nuclear program, which they still argued was peaceful. And up to now, we don't have any evidence to say that Iranian nuclear program was not peaceful. And just to add to that, you know, when you look at the way the Middle East is positioned, it is like in the Middle East, Israel has the right to do everything and no other person should do it. Because the Israelis have never actually opened up their nuclear program to the International Atomic Energy Agency. They have refused to open it. So nobody knows anything about the nuclear program of Israel. But everything about any other country in the Middle East have to be controlled, led by the US. Why should it be that? If you have a law amongst that is governing countries, until you are fair in the implementation of that law, you always have problems. If you say that Israel can do what they want, and then no other country can do it, it is, in my opinion, it is not fair. And this is something that the United States have, a big blunder that the United States have caused. Generally, in United States foreign policy, the United States is fond of making false agreements and not respecting them. I remember the agreement that they had with North Korea. This guy who is the president of North Korea, the father, he accepted to destroy the North Korean nuclear program until he started. But when the Americans failed to respect their own part of the bargain, he hurriedly went back. He hurriedly went back and activated his nuclear program, which is today a deterrence. The 2008 Access of Evil speech, if you go and read it, the United States listed 8 countries that they had to destabilize those governments and bring down, they call it regime change. Out of those 8 countries, they have successfully destabilize the governments of the other 6 countries. Iran is the 7th and North Korea is the 8th. Why would you sit down and plan such evil for such a long time without any justification? We know what happened when they went to Iraq. When the United States went to Iraq, they said they were weapons of mass destruction. And what happened? Up to today, weapons of mass destruction have never been found. So the United States is fond of taking false protests to attack other countries that they feel that are not submissive to them. And for me, I feel that this is not the example of a good leader. And I think that the U.S. is, what particularly President Trump is doing, President Trump is destroying international law, acting with a lot of absolute impunity. You cannot sit down and walk into Venezuela and capture their president because Venezuela has some oil that you want to take. And then the other day he said they would like a gentle takeover of Cuba. I mean, it's very annoying that you can sit down in the world of today, you think that you can just walk into any country and take over the country. So concerning this issue, I just touch a few issues on, it's like the United States feel that because they are powerful, they can do anything, and Israel can do anything that they want at any time, and nobody has to say anything. But what I'm saying is, if you are the leader that the United States assumes they are, and you feel that you can allow one person to do a wrong thing, and then you stop the other person, you will be making a very big mistake, and I don't think that that approach will work. in the world of today.
Okay, Dr. Stanley, before going there, they talked of preemptive attacks on Iran. Is there a credible legal basis for the U.S. and Israel to justify preemptive military strikes under international law, or does this set a dangerous precedent?
Talking about international law, I think we need to be extremely quite careful, especially assertions, because international law really it's not the global south. Unfortunately, the people who are in global north has the upper hand as opposed to those in the global south. So when you talk about international law, what do you really mean? I think there has to be a lot of definition in relations assertions. But my point again is that irrespective what it is that the United States of America and Israel has done, the problem we face is the fact that Iran, it's its own worst. If you look at every single thing that Iran's done for the last 2 decades, 3 decades for that matter, why 4? It has always been about the destruction of Israel. They will do whatever it takes to basically wipe them out. Including the one that has just been taken out, that has been their main mode of operation. Unfortunately, that is what it is. And I don't know exactly, where we go from here. But if international laws happen, I think that folks are thinking about preemptive strike being a way to prevent Iran from Iran best. I think that we should not forget about what Iran, through its proxy did in Israel. And what brought about the total, destruction of Palestine, and that of Iran with Hamas. So we need to basically start calling what it is. A lot of U.S. military personnel have died in Iran, and this has taken place, over and over the last, 3-4 decades. So a time comes when you have to basically say enough is enough. I also think that the whole entire idea that Donald Trump walked away from a very perfect nuclear deal, that's laughable. The deal of thing. It basically said we're going to pause for the creation of a nuclear weapon. We're going to enrich uranium to the point where we will not get to a weapon group. But that did not stop Iran from doing so. So the posture of Trump is, and the posture of America has always been, Iran have nuclear weapon because of what Iran promised to do. And so to be able to look than just lines that floats on channels that we are quite accustomed to.
Is Israel the point of focus here? The existence, survival of Israel, is it the crux of what this fight is all about?
Absolutely. Israel's right for self-existence basically on the line. Do whatever it takes to make sure that they fight anyone who, basically threaten to annihilate the entire country. It's not a very large place. So you think that, nuclear war will basically decimate the whole entire region. So we need to basically look at this from Israel's perspective. This is not a secret. Every single day in Parliament, they are shouting out to America, to Israel, burning American flags, burning Israel right there in their parliament. Their leaders have said, we will do whatever it takes to wipe out Israel. We wipe out America. So what we want Israel to do.
Yeah, but while these discussions on the ongoing war is on, before I get to Tamai Jarvis, nobody is looking at the recent protests that took place in Iran, which also attracted the attention of President Donald Trump, who told the protesters that we are coming to assist you.
The issue is the protest took place in Iran. The issue is this level of hypocrisy, especially coming from Iran. Iranians, 30,000 Iranians were wiped out during this protest by their own government. So you know that those who basically survived the streets of Iran, they carried their bodies to the hospital. Iranian soldiers went to the hospital and basically wiped them out, alienated these people on their hospital beds, the families to pay for the bullets that was in family members. You tell me, talking about.
Okay, Tamai Jarvis, missiles are floating all over the Middle East today. Almost everybody is attacked. We see Iran is attacking bases in Qatar, in Jordan, in
Bahrain.
in Bahrain. Yes, in so many of these countries, is this the best way to go? Can they also boast of a right to self-defense, but self-defense at what?
It's a very critical and delicate position that Iran may have taken. Unfortunately, they were not all odds are against them. And whether we are looking at from the position of strength that they claim they have, or are against them. You know, the world is not ruled by emotions, but by fact, and also either you are using somebody or somebody uses you. Now, Iran attacking the neighbors is not the sense move. Yeah, some people may say it's preemptive move to get U.S. bases there which are under attack. But remember that this is further coming to get some of those that used to support you passively not to support you again, because there have been some hotels that have been hit across the Middle East. There have been some structures, civilian structures that have been hit, and also there have been the biggest oil refinery in Saudi Arabia was hit by Iran. And I do believe that if you are Saudi Arabia, or you are Prince bin Salman, you will not take that lightly, because that is a lifeline of Saudi Arabia. Now, you asked Mr. Tazi which international treaty has been breached. There are a lot of treaties have been breached as far as international protocol is concerned. But now the question we should be asking ourselves is, the international protocol, do they really exist in theory, or they are normative, or what ought to be? Because if we look at what ought to be, I think that every nation, as a point in time, has what is called the interest of their citizen. Every leader has the interest of their citizen. And that is what has been since the days of Mao Zedong, since the days when we had the great empires, the Kanombuno empire, since the day we had the Jaja of Opobo, the day we had Kuva the Kenya. It has always been, like Africa, Cameroon has always been a place where this kingdom against this kingdom is strength to conquer. And that has just simply moved from the contextual state. Because if you look at Africa before the colonial period, it was a war. This community will fight this community. This community will fight this community. The reason was because of what? Dominance. And at that time, we didn't have the contextual state. When this issue of contextual state came into place, it simply transformed its face to interest. Now, if you are looking at what Iran is doing, attacking the neighbors, Iran is instead bringing in more enmity within themselves and more hatred within themselves. Yes, the issue is America attack on Iran from the normative theory, from the international theory. Is it okay? No. Because if you look at the UN Charter, Article 2, Sub 4, states that you are not supposed to enter into another man's country directly or indirectly to violate his territorial integrity. That is normative. That is what ought to be. Now, but is that what is? Now, that same article did not fail to talk about preemptive strike. That same article also, you know, there's a loophole in that article. It also did not like what the guest in America was talking about, that Iran is chanting death to America in their parliament, burning American flag. And the key principle here is the two-state solution. And the two-state solution is what the former Iranian president Mahmoud Ahmadinejad rejected, the two-state solution, which they said that, okay, there should be a two-state solution. The right for Israel to stay as a state, and the right of Palestinians to stay as a state. Then there's peace. A lot of Iran, until then, Iran official policy has not accepted the two-state solution. That was why, if you listen to Yasser Arafat, and before he died, and there was also another leader, when they asked about the two-state solution, I remember Christian Amanpour asked Mahmoud Ahmadinejad in an interview, which is still echo. He said, you say you will not accept a two-state solution, or you will not accept Israel's right to exist. And Mahmoud Ahmadinejad said, yes, they will not accept Israel's right to exist. Now, in this context, therefore, what is the international provision? If somebody is threatening that I'll kill you, and I'll kill you, is there a law that says that you should? What punishment has been done to Iran for all this that Iran is calling for the annihilation of Israel, since there was no punishment meted by the United Nations Security Council? Because in all fairness, if Article 2 states that you are not supposed to violate somebody's integrity, there should be also another article which states that if you threaten somebody with visible threats that are visible, you should be punished, and the UN should be held responsible, because the UN at this point in time failed to hold Iran responsible for all the credible threats that were given to Israel. And you know Israel has what is called its partners, which is America. And America also see that if Israel is annihilated, nobody will stand and see genocide being perpetrated. So at one point in time, what they do is, let us take away the leadership of these nations, such that the next leadership that is coming will be able to respect the two-state solution and Israel's right to exist. So that is the context here. However, there is no morality in international relations. People should keep this rhetoric, whether it is far or near. Putin went to Ukraine and entered into Ukraine. The only thing they could do was individual nations did their sanctions. But as international community, as the United Nations Organization, what did they do? That was what emboldened Trump. And I will negotiate the deal. And Trump saw that, oh, there's need. There are some loopholes in American policy, like Greenland. Many people thought that Trump was going to invade Greenland. It was simply to put Greenland on the edge. Greenland came back and renegotiated and gave America what they needed. It's the same. It's all about each nation interest. The same thing Iran is refusing Israel right to exist because of their personal interest. And the same way, I will say it emphatically that international policy is limited to one's personal need for their nation. And that is what we are witnessing today. What has UN done for you, Russia? Russia emboldened Trump. Trump saw what Europe did. Europe was just making noise on Russia. They did not stop Russia. They have not stopped Russia. So Trump said, okay, I'll go to Venezuela. And when Trump went to Venezuela, their allies they just murmured behind. Nobody did anything. And it's for America's own interest, because the same Venezuela, people are failed to understand. When Hugo Chavez took over power, Hugo Chavez nationalized the oil sector in Venezuela. Now Americans who had invested billions in Venezuela lost their billions. They took Hugo Chavez to court. Hugo Chavez started paying and stopped paying, stating that the economy was down. So when Maduro came in, they have been asking our debt. In all fairness, the business people who had invested billions went back to Trump. We have billions in Venezuela. It's not been given. They met Maduro for negotiation. He could not return back the nationalization. So at the end of the day, Trump said, okay, I'll take him out. And that was when Maduro was taken out, Trump had a meeting with all the oil sector people in his office, that this is now the roadmap. So at the end of the day, it's all about interest.
Okay, it's all about interest, which means that some of these humanitarian laws just exist in writing, but in real practice, it may not count, because when you listen to French President 2 days ago, Emmanuel Macron, he says that we have to start rearming ourselves, because from every indication to be free, you need to be scared. Those were his words.
Yeah, before I answer your question, Mr. Kum, I have some few remarks to make.
Okay.
My fellow panelist from the U.S. who says that Iran is a risk to the U.S., I don't think Iran has posed any risk to the United States. It is true that Iran had their own issues in the region with Israel, but that doesn't give the U.S. the privilege to just get up and go and invade a country when they were in compliance with all the negotiations. If you talk to International Atomic Energy representative, they tell you that Iran was responding. Again, this issue of, you said 30 million Iranians were killed by their own government. 30,000 what? What is the justification? This is the very thing that they told us in Libya, that Gaddafi was killing people. They invaded Libya and destroyed that country. Look at where Libya is today. That was the very excuse they gave us in Iraq. When the United States went to Iraq, they said that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, which we have not found out today. They've destroyed Iraq. So I fail to buy that opinion that you feel that you say this leadership killed 30,000 people, and so they will have. They're talking about the oil refinery you mentioned in Saudi Arabia. Is, in fact, for me, I feel that it is like most of us, including some very educated people in the world, will feel that Israel has the right to do anything. If we say that Iran chanted death to Israel, yes, they did. What about the Palestinians? There are 100,000 Palestinians that Israel have killed. I mean, with no mercy. You are talking with no mercy. I mean, it doesn't. I don't think that it is. And then I don't think that it is in any sense fair that Israel would demolish Palestinian homes and kill about 100,000 Palestinians, and nobody says anything. And the cowardliness of the leaders in the Middle East shocked me. It shocked me because no country in the Middle East made a single statement about the killing of Palestinians. And this is the message I'm sending to them. This is my focus. Israel will gradually invade all those countries. The greater Israeli agenda, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, you will become Israeli territories in the region. And what they did to Palestine, they will do it to you. Watch out. And to come back to your question about international law, Mr. Kum, I feel that in my opinion, that thing you call international law, I think the United Nations should be disbanded. It's obsolete. Because for now, as Javi said, the United Nations is just helpless. There's nothing they can do. Anybody who is strong can get up and go to anywhere and do what he does. Jarvis mentioned the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, and I take this opportunity to take a minute of yours. You know, Russia's invasion of Ukraine was a necessity. It was a basic necessity. Because in the 1990s, after the West and America had an agreement with Russia before the Berlin Wall was brought down. It was agreed that as we are bringing down the Berlin Wall, you are not going to expand NATO east. That was the agreement they had. Russia was broken down to around 15 countries. NATO had taken 13. It is only Ukraine and Russia itself that was left. And Russia has been warning for the past 20 years. Don't come, you cannot take over Ukraine because for security risks, we are not going to allow this to happen. And then you go ahead and push. I want to say that what Russia has tolerated, America cannot tolerate 1/10 of it. America cannot tolerate any Russian or Chinese military bases in Canada or in Bahamas or in Cuba or in Mexico, in any neighborhood. They will not tolerate it for one day. So why do you expect another person to tolerate what you cannot tolerate? And this is what I mean by principle of fairness. You think that Jarvis is wearing a beautiful green suit, he should not wear it and I should wear it. No, why? If America feels that foreign military bases from China, either from China or from Russia, should not be in Canada, in Bahamas, then you should not be fighting to place your own military bases at the doorstep of Russia. Nobody is going to accept that. So you see, when we look at it, if you look at it from that, and I feel that the war has gotten to a point where only the strong will survive. Only the strong will survive. And I'm sending a message to African leaders, most of whom have decided to be cowards. We sit down for the past 60 years, we are begging for money from IMF and World Banks. We are going there to beg for money. We cannot feed our citizens. We cannot provide food. We cannot provide roads. We cannot provide anything. I want to tell us that what the United States is doing to Arabs, they love Arabs more than black people. United States and Israel. If what they are doing to Arabs, they will do it to black people 100 times. So the African leaders, a mention of the 2008 Access of Evil speech. North Korea has not been attacked because they have a deterrence. You have to work out. I don't know how you are working it out. Otherwise, and they have started. Rubio in the Munich Security Conference said it is time to recolonize Africa. In that, those were not his exact word, but that was the message he sent home. And this has been coming from various quarters in Europe. So we should be ready and know that we should think that, we don't think that we are very safe, especially now when African leaders are beginning to say that no, we have to get fairer deals in the negotiation of our natural resources. That is when these people will not be able to survive. And this is the genesis for all the efforts to kill the people in the Sahel. So for me, to conclude on your question, the issue of international law has been completely destroyed by the Trump regime. Completely destroyed. And there's no way they can repair it. I don't know what the United Nations is still doing, but the United Nations should normally be disbanded.
Yeah, but when you say international law has been completely destroyed by the Trump regime, we have seen conflicts in Africa where almost any nation does the way they do it, and we have not seen a key sanction. Russia has been at war with Ukraine, but you want to justify Russia's aggression on Ukraine on security situations, but the Ukrainians themselves, don't they have a right to what they want?
Mr. Kum, you are comparing
Russia invaded Ukraine. You are understanding more than the Ukrainians. You are an African. Are you saying that the Ukrainians don't know what they want? And if is Ukraine a sovereign state? If Ukraine is a sovereign state, another sovereign state invades the sovereign state, you are justifying it, and you think it is not also working on international laws?
I will return the question to you. In 1963, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, 63-64, when Cuba decided to install Russian military missile stations in Cuba, and America attacked, is it that the Cubans did not have the right to, as a sovereign nation, they didn't have the right to do that?
Which means...
the question
no, I'm the one asking the question.
Yes.
Which means that America violated the international laws.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
By invading a sovereign state.
Yes.
Why don't you think that Russia is doing same?
Well, it's for... let me come. If you ask me, why don't you think that these are two different things that you are comparing that should not be compared?
No, you are the one.
He did not. Let me come.
Yeah.
America did not go to Russia. When I say destroy international law, one of the conspicuous ways that the Trump administration destroy international law by going to a country and kidnapping their leader. Even though Chavez holds a different opinion, that like justifying where they should, whatever the case, you negotiate, don't go to another country and kidnap their leader. And this is typical of American. The leader of is it Honduras? Honduras was kidnapped by the Americans. So this thing that you leave, you go into a country. Then the other day he said he wants a gentle takeover of Cuba. So when you look at that, where is international law? Where's international law?
We are going away from what our discussion for tonight, which has to do with the war in the Middle East. Dr. Stanley, do you understand the attacks on Bahrain, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, and yes, all these countries which have received attacks from Iran so far? Do you understand the notion that Iran is attacking countries hosting American bases?
They know a little bit more about how painful it is to live with people whose objective in life is to be able to make infidels as they can, so that they can this utopia in power. When that comes to which anyone basically live their lives, it's extremely quite of a negotiation or to somebody who McCarthy, so far as their outlook on life is concerned. It is a lose-lose situation. It is not a win-win situation. You better keep quiet. I think that the Arabs are exactly what the Arab nations would do. The reason why we travel to places like we, UAE, those nations of the Bahrain, we visit those countries is because it is absolutely, better in relationship to their outlook that allows for those of us who are not Muslims to be able to have a good time in those areas. Why don't you try that in Iran? Why won't you try that in places like Iraq? So we have to basically start asking ourselves, questions, what kind of a wall are we trying to build? And that it's quite amazing that, we have in floating those ideologies that the Middle East and why it's now a all kinds of this group. We're talking about, the house of the Maghreb, the regions between Morocco. We're talking about ISIS operating in places like Mali. You have to solve these questions. What kind of a wall are we looking at? When the attacks are taking place in most Arab nations, it easily becomes the version of Islam and how radical Iran is in relationship to what she wants to see, or the caliphate that the philosophers as the world is concerned, these nations in for it. And so we have to basically start asking ourselves on this side of the continent, we might, but on economic front, on the economic front, social front, political front, and security front, we are literally just next door neighbors. It's going to affect each and every one of us on the continent. I like the towards the fact that those are should start looking within ourselves for our own salvation, trying to find ways in which we can be able to build what we're looking for and find ways to collaborate, connect, and talk on the continent and see how we can build our own trade routes on the continent, to basically mitigate some, catastrophe that is happening in the Middle East. I'm not sure it's where we go from here. On the issues of Maduro, look, Maduro, before Trump came into office, Maduro had a 20 million, if I'm not mistaken, it had a 20 million bounty on his head. They wanted him in America for nothing else but drugs. Drugs. Maduro was nothing else but a drug trafficker pushing all kinds of drugs into the United States of America. And it was a court in the US that him guilty doing that and to bring him into the US. The issue that, went and kidnapped a foreign leader. No, America went and kidnapped a drug dealer. I don't speak for the Trump administration. My forte. I'm far more interested about happening on the continent of Africa. But the reality is that we cannot be able to basically have a little bit of an understanding as to what is happening, on the global stage, why certain things are happening the way they're happening, comes and give us a solution to give us a medication to a sickness that we are not sick of. And I think that it's important for us to make sure that we fully understand, do some little bit in relationship to what is actually happening. Listen to both sides, try to figure out how do ourselves, the position to be able to handle certain things if they do occur. I am a big time that the Organization for African Unity, the OAU, on the African continent time failure, we might be able to do something with that. I have a whole book on that. But I think, honestly, that these are the conversations we need to have. We need to be able to take the posture of Europe, we see America, the Middle East, and then we ask ourselves, what do we want so far as the African is concerned? Or what do we want as Africa is concerned? And what do we want the continent of Africa? At least from an Afrocentric perspective.
Okay. Now, how are different regions reacting to this conflict, Tamai Jarvis, and what does this mean for international norms and alliances?
Well, in terms of the reaction from different regions, it has been mixed. We have Spain, the same NATO members. Spain is not okay with this because the Spanish government recently refused America from using their air base to strike Iran. And this caused a lot of rift. As I'm talking to you right now, there's a rift between the Trump administration and Spain. The Trump administration immediately yesterday announced that they will impose maximum tariff on Spain, and that Spain is supposed to be an ally, a NATO ally, but refusing their base is unacceptable. And America had to leave the Spanish military base so that they will not attack Iran. You also have the mixed reaction also coming from earlier. There was the mixed reaction coming from Britain, where Keir Starmer had earlier rejected the fact that the British air bases, military bases, should not be used to attack Iran. But as the war started, he immediately switched his position when the British base in Cyprus was hit. And when it was hit, he immediately gave the permission for America to use this. Now, at the level of the Middle East, which is supposed to come with solidarity, there is a very big divide in the Middle East because you have Pakistan. Pakistan has now shown their support for Iran, but they say Iran should stop attacking its neighbors. They said Iran should not attack its neighbors. They stand in solidarity with Iran. And note that there's also another war between Pakistan and Afghanistan. We just started that was last week. And at the end of the day, Pakistan is saying that they are standing with Iran. But if you look at the neighbors, Iranian neighbors, you look at the Bahrain, Qatar, you look at UAE, Saudi Arabia, all of these people have maintained a principle of partial neutrality. When I mean by partial neutrality, I'm talking about the fact that they have not openly said they stand with America or they stand against America, but they have simply used their their resources to shoot down projectiles being launched from Iran to attack American military bases, because to them they first consider that this is an attack to their airspace. Whether you are attacking an American military base is an attack to their airspace. That's what I talked about. I talked about partial neutrality, because Iran expected that since they are hitting the American target, they expected that these countries should not interfere in their strike, but rather America should be the one to shoot down their projectile or shoot down their mixer or their drones on American air bases. But we have seen that some of these attacks, this mixer have landed on civilian buildings and business centers, so which now gave a problem. Now you see, yesterday evening, the defense minister of UAE came out and said UAE will attack if Iran continue their strike on their territory. Saudi Arabia also yesterday said they are ready to go to war with Iran if Iran continue their strike. Now, in the middle of Middle East belt, you express a kind of neutrality or solidarity towards Iran is lacking. Come to Africa. You move to before Africa. Let's move to Asia. You see, at the level of the Korean Peninsula, you only have North Korea, which is expected. North Korea, Kim Jong-un, that has condemned the attack. And you also have the Russian President Dmitry Medvedev, who is the War Council's chairperson in Russia, has condemned the attack and described Donald Trump. He said Donald Trump is a warmonger who parades himself as the peace ambassador. Now, if you come to Africa, at this certain level in Africa, what are those countries that have condemned? South Africa has taken a stand that they want to negotiate between America, Iran. They want to mediate. But remember that America has a problem with South Africa. First, Trump refused to attend the G20 that was held in South Africa over the problem of that South Africa is maltreating white farmers. Now, South Africa also had a problem with Israel, because South Africa was a country that took Israel to the ICC, and ICC had to give an arrest warrant, an international arrest warrant, on the head of Benjamin Netanyahu. So South Africa would definitely side with Iran, because also remember that South Africa is a strong member of the BRICS, and Iran is also part of the BRICS. So at the end of the day, South African neutrality is questionable. You move to Cameroon. Cameroon, to the best of my knowledge, has not officially taken a stand or released a communique, whether condemning or reaffirming. You move to Nigeria. Nigeria is the same. They have most of these African countries have maintained a sealed lips as far as this is concerned. But one would have expected that Egypt, Tunisia, Morocco will react, because all of them are in the Arab League. These are nations, they may be African nations, but they are in the Arab League and share the same view. But you see, these three nations have not said anything, with instead saw America calling on its citizens to leave Egypt.
We've seen Morocco siding with the Gulf states, as well as Algeria, which was considered an Iranian ally.
Yes.
The
issue is that don't attack a fellow Gulf state. But in terms of the America and Iran exchanges, they have not said anything, because normally they have a right to talk about they condemn the attack on the Gulf state, because they belong to the Arab League. But in terms of the war itself between Israel, US against Iran, they have not taken a position. They have not said whether they are against America or they are against. You also have Kenyan president. Kenyan president came out, instead of condemning the war between Israel and Iran, the president of Kenya instead condemned Iran attack on the Gulf state. He released a strong statement that attacking the Gulf state.
That is what Algeria and Morocco also
said,
yeah.
That attacking the neighboring state is unacceptable, as is a violation of international sovereignty and breach peace within the neighbor state. But he failed to actually condemn whether America violated or Iran violated. So at this point in time, to answer what Mr. Patas is saying, in this conflict, there is no right or wrong. The only right or wrong is how much powers you have. And when you said Russia had a right, I laughed, because if Russia had a right because you say there was a Minsk agreement that was not respected, also America has a right because they have had credible evidence to show that their major ally, Israel, is under attack, and even America is under attack. Remember, there was a 1953 conflict in Iran. Americans were killed in Iran. Americans were killed in Iran. That was what led to the Iranian Revolution. So when you are looking at who has the right, that Russia has the right, also remember that America also has the right. Mr. Patazi, I'll be very honest with you that if you have a child that is bullying your child in school, that is threatening your child, is chanting death to your child, you will leave your house and go and get that child beaten. But there is a principle of territoriality. This is simple within us. That your child comes and tells you that there's one person that is bullying and is chanting that I will kill you, I will kill your father. I don't believe that you will stay in that house and wait for that child to come and kill your own child. You will leave your house and go and preemptive. And that's the same thing that's happening. Nobody has the right. Let me give a typical example. There's an M23 rebel issue. You have DRC and Rwanda. It's clear. But what has the African Union done? You said Trump has violated international policy. We have had a lot of international law violated. Are you not aware about the Naira 6, the Abuja court ruling? Is it not part of international law? Everybody is violating international law based on their strength. Okay. So at the end of the day, Trump own is not exception, and Russia own is not a key that Russia was supposed to because the Minsk agreement was disrespected. It is all about interest based. Are my interest or is my interest on the right pedestal? Unfortunately for us, that's why I will repeat it that if I am the president of this country, if I see that my interest is at stake, I will go and secure my interest. Every nation, you see the same thing Nigeria did in the Bakassi Peninsula. When Nigeria realized that the Bakassi Peninsula was in their interest, what did they do? They invaded. Fortunately, we had the gallant soldiers and also we had the law was on our side. We fought. We defended. And unfortunately for Nigeria, we won them and we won also at the tribunal. So the question on rightness or wrongness, that's why in research methodology, which I always teach students in university, is that there is what we call the normative. Normative are what ought to be. But it's usually not what is. Because on the ground, you go with the Darwin principle of survival of the fittest. It's only the strong survive. It's the same like a Maslow principle of hierarchy of need. You cannot talk about security when you are not full, when you are hungry. So at the end of the day, Patazi, whether Russia, I understand that you pay your allegiance to your analysis on the Cuban Missile Crisis, which I agree with you that in that same Cuban Missile Crisis, John Franklin Kennedy, at the time was the president of America, whom he said that fellow citizens, arise, the security of our country is in danger. The mixer of our enemies, Russia, are within the short range of our major cities. The future generation of America will not forgive us if we fail to react. That was why they reacted to the Bay of Pigs incident. I agree with you. But on the other side too, if Russia has decided to stay in mute, it's their problem. America has a right not to tolerate. If Russia wants to tolerate, it's their problem. The issue of tolerance is based on how it's a character issue or a principle issue. The way you react to something is not the way I will react to something. Don't expect me to react your way. Conclusively, on this note, that we see this conflict moving around, America has a right to defend Israel and to carry out a preemptive strike because we have had credible evidences where Iran have been chanting death to America, okay, also Israel.
Now, what reading do you make of China and Russia? They had a recent military drill with alongside Iran. Are they playing some symbolic game or they are genuinely partners of Iran?
Before I come to your question, I have a few reactions to make to my former panelists. The first one is that he mentioned the issue of a bully in school. If somebody bullies my child in school, I will not go and attack that child. I will go and report to the school principal, and they will find a peaceful solution. Wait, let me finish. Let me come. I will go and report to the school authority and find a peaceful solution. Iran has chanted death to Israel, yes. But there was a way. Listen to me now. Let me finish. There was a way of working this out, and that's what the one plus one arrangement was for. Iran, okay, you've chanted that to Israel. We will monitor your nuclear program so that you don't produce this thing. And they were in compliance 100% according to the International Atomic Energy.
But your standard...
No, wait, let me finish. They were in compliance. So that was the way America has the right to protect Israel, yes, but America will protect, they had the possibility to protect Israel without launching a war. That possibility exists. That is my argument. They had the possibility to protect Israel without launching a war on Iran. Because the peaceful arrangement was working. It is America that defaulted. Then the first issue I want to talk about, somebody mentioned something about Spain and sovereignty.
No, but before you move on, you talked about this issue that you go to the school officials and complain and they'll resolve it.
Yeah.
On this case, the school official here is a United Nations, which is a supreme body. But you just said in your first intervention that the UN has failed, which is the school officials have failed to secure.
You have nominated United Nations as a school official. For me, in this case,
so,
it's not necessarily the United Nations.
So
the P+1 arrangement that they had. No, but this was European Unions and European partners, and these were 5 countries plus Iran. What I'm saying is that whether the United Nations gave the approval or not, inside this arrangement, it was not under the banner. They weren't existing. They may have existed under the banner of the United Nations.
The P5+1 was operating under the mandate given to them by the United Nations.
Yes, but it was working.
That's why the IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency, is an agency within the UN.
Yeah, but it was working. Was it working? Yes. Who worked out of it? Was it Iran one worked out of it? No.
Can you?
It was not Iran that worked out of it. So that's what I'm saying. That there were other ways for America to protect Israel, not by declaring war. And then you mentioned about something about the strike Iran is putting on all the neighbors. You know, when you are a neighbor and you sit in your house and hold meetings to attack me, and you put military bases in your house. Look at where Iran started attacking. Iran was attacking American military bases in those countries. It is true that if I were Iran, I would not have reacted like that. But you know that this is where these guys have put these weapons to attack you. Everybody has his own war strategy. The Iranian war strategy was like, okay, let's hit their bases so that they will not attack us. These countries have been, what the United States and Israel have done is they have used divide and rule all over these years to buy some of these countries in so many deals to keep them, to keep their military bases there in preparation for. Remember, this war is not a war of today. They have been praying for this war for the past 20 years. For the past 20 years. I mentioned something about sovereignty vis-a-vis Spain. And now I'm saying that Spain has a right to say that America will not use their military as a sovereign state. Why is Trump so angry? Where is the sovereignty? The sovereignty issue, is it not the right of Spain to say that? I'll come back now to your question about China and Russia.
Before you get there.
Yeah.
Now, when you attack Bahrain,
yes,
you attack Qatar,
yes,
you attack Saudi Arabia, you attack United Arab Emirates, how do you expect them to see you after this war, to fear you more or to prepare better? Because now you are giving them the legitimacy now to arm themselves for a bigger war that may come tomorrow.
Before they have always looked at Iran as an enemy. And that's why they have connived with America and the Israelis to put their military.
Are you not giving a reason now to see you as a bigger enemy?
I've told you something. I've told you something. As if I were Iran, I would not have attacked them. But the war strategists in Iran thought that they should hit those military bases, and to a certain degree, somebody can reason with them, because these are the military bases from which they are mounting ammunition to attack you. If you hit those military bases and destroy them, you reduce the chances of the ammunition that they use to attack you. This is logical in war. And these countries accepting the military bases into their countries, automatically they knew about the plan of this war. They knew they were going to attack Iran. They would have behaved like Spain. They would say, okay, your military base is my country, but you are not going to use it to attack Iran. They didn't. They allowed America to use military bases in their country freely, and Iran had told them, you have foreign military bases in your country. If they were attacked from there, we'll hit those bases. They told them clearly. It's not as if they didn't start after that. They told them that, don't allow these military bases in your country to be used against us. We'll attack you. So the fact that they tolerated the installation of the military bases, and when the war started, they could refuse like Spain. But they gave the waiver for the United States to use the military bases to attack them. I think to a certain degree, some people will reason with Iran that no, if we are being attacked from this camera, if I destroy this camera, I'll minimize the chances of my attack. And that can be the reason why, I don't know why the Iranians did it, that can be the rationale for the attack, for the attack on these countries by the Iranians. It weakens Iran, I agree with you. It weakens Iran's popularity, I agree with you. Because even those in those countries that did not agree with their governments for allowing the military base, will now seeing that there was a reason. Yesterday, the Saudi government spokesman was saying that America has abandoned them, has removed the missile shield and taken them to Israel. America is not protecting them. Maybe they have some arrangements. I don't know. But what I'm saying is, if you are a neighbor, you sit in your house, they come and build bombs in your house to attack me, and I know where those bombs are, I may decide to attack you. You may decide not to. Depends on the strategies of the strategy of those who are planning the war. To a certain degree, Iran, to a certain degree, was trying to minimize, in my opinion, was trying to minimize the sources of those attacks that America was launching on them from those military bases.
Okay.
To come back to your question about China and Russia, You know, international geopolitics is something that is very unpredictable. And you know, this issue is very sensitive that I respect the restraint of China and Russia, because if they had come out in full support of
Iran?
the Iran, we may all just be as well as dead, because what is so awaited, the long-awaited Third World War, anything can spark it anytime from now. So I think that you remember that these people are. Look at what happened in Libya. China and Russia allowed Gaddafi to be assassinated by the Caucasians from the north, from Europe and America. And in normal day, you would have thought that they were allies. Look at what happened in Syria. Russia tried, but at the end of the day, Assad was taken out. As these were the countries that were in the in the Axis of Evil speech of 2008. So for me, China, look at China has not fought any major war for almost the last 50 years. And that's what has made them very, very developed. We are fighting wars, they are developing. So it is true they have some joint military drills with Iran. We cannot completely conclude today that China and Russia have abandoned Iran. Maybe they have a strategy they are planning to come in at one moment. Nobody knows. But I fear for their intervention, for their direct intervention. If they give the type of support to Iran that America is giving to Israel, it will be very, very dangerous for world peace. And I think for now, I respect their restraint for not intervening directly. We hope that we find a way around it before things escalate.
Okay. Dr. Stanley, we are looking at Russia and China. Could they have also emboldened Iran to think that in the event of a war, they will have support from these two world powers?
Every single of was basic security that he needed, but then that did not work. They took out Maduro without firing a single shot, so to say. I mean, they call it kidnap, call it whatever you want. They yanked a sitting president out of a military base, in Venezuela and dropping in New York. Stuff, was a telltale sign to anyone around the world that there are some certain things you do not play with, and you do not play with the U.S. military the way it is. I think that Iran did a lot of missteps, miscalculation. One of the things I really don't like, they say we're talking to about Iran as this little, beautiful, nice young schoolboy who is probably about 6 years old, going through a tantrum because he's leaving mom and going to school and really want to be home. That's not Iran. Iran is the terrorist state, has always been. If you look at what they did in 1779, happened with Iran. Beirut is a clear example. That was in 83. If you look at, they did that 83. They did in Arabia. They did that in 96. If you look at that in 2020, Iran has been doing a lot of damage, to U.S. asset in the Middle, and there is no way in which they were going to allow Iran to continue what Iran does. Anyway, I think that we have to be a little bit more strategic here. I think Russia and China are playing the long game, while everybody, the immediate stuff, that's not Russia, that's not China. I think China has proven to us strength and the might of the military technology-wise. If you go to China today, I think you're amazed how beautiful and how powerful the nation has become. It's a testament to the long game, not the short game. And I don't think that it is into the interest of China, to basically immerse themselves within with Iran, knowing very well, what the U.S. military did to their equipment in Venezuela. Their equipment based working. Every single thing else that they had over there could not match whatever the U.S. military came with. That's top secret. Nobody's talking about it. But whatever the U.S. military came with, just basically cause all of their systems to fail. And so if you were China, you'll be thinking a little bit harder before you basically try to enthroned yourself into something, except that you basically want to end it all, which would be to basically just go into a nuclear, armed conflict, which might be just the end for everybody else. We will not be talking about the Middle East per se. Each and every one of us will be fighting for where we can hide for whatever time we have left. So for me, I think that we really must be able to understand exactly why China is not into this. And I don't think that Russia has gone through a lot. I think we see the amount of personnel that Russia has lost with the war that is currently enthroned in. There are young Africans that are fighting armies, in battlefields far at home, all because they're looking for an opportunity for green pastures, somewhere else in Europe. That is the clear sign of exactly how sick and sad we have become on the continent of Africa, that we always seems to be the one who cries that for something out of the, and yet we're quite silent on the things that is happening, within the continent. We can give statistical analysis as to how many people were killed in many regions, but we are quite silent to the huge, gigantic, humongous number of people who has been obliterated, counting all the civil wars that is ravaging, our continent, from the issues in Cameroon to the issues in places like the DRC, from what's happening in northern Nigeria, from what's happening in the Sahel. Quite quiet about it, and but yet it's quite normal. We are numb to those things. But when somewhere around the world, then basically seems a voice. I think that we should spend a little bit more time talking about what really does concern us as Africans, than trying to be able to figure out exactly who is doing what. I think that while we are trying to celebrate or go become mourners of somebody else's cup somewhere, we have a village. Billions of Africans are dying daily. I say specifically because I'm projecting that out, but a lot of Africans dying out daily, and we need to be able to make sure that we begin to focus on the things that I think really, really do concern us.
Okay, when you look at what is happening in the Middle East and the power show of other nations across the globe able to intercept these missiles that are flying across the skies in the Middle East, one is quick to ask what may happen if things were to turn towards Africa. Are we prepared for this?
We are not prepared for this. As I was saying a while ago, I was saying that just imagine one of Iranian missile accidentally is fired, or ballistic missile fire, and it passes and enter African airspace. What will happen? We will not be able to intercept it, because you have the full impact will be achieved. And that is coming back to what Thomas Sankara once said. That Thomas Sankara once said that he will feed you, controls you, and that you cannot protect. If you cannot be able to be strong, you cannot protect your food. So you must be able to be strong before you protect the food you are eating. And the issue with that is, if you look at what is happening, our brothers and sisters are making mockery of us in Bahrain and in Dubai. I've watched a lot of videos that are saying that, their missiles are flying up and down, they are safe because they are shooting down. They are doing videos. They say, but if it was in their home country, it would just pass here and make kaboom. Our brothers and sisters who are in those countries that are making mockery. The reason is because we have a leadership in Africa that is not generational. That don't think generational. It think just momentarily. A leadership that believes that it think just about the next election than the next generation. Because all what you are seeing now in the United Arab Emirates, being able to shoot down some of those missiles with accurate precision. The reason why some of those other missiles managed to land on target was because they were overwhelmed. And when the Iron Gun can only shoot 5 missiles at the 30 seconds or 30-minute interval, and Iran sent about 50, At least 1 or 2 may not be able to shut down. That's the only reason. It's not because the Iron Gun failed. It did not fail. It's just because of our overwhelmingness. But whatever you see is a result of generational leadership. That said, hey, in future there may be a war.
They're moving away from the Iron Dome. They are testing something.
Laser. Now
laser,
they are
yes.
moving out to laser.
They tested it. Yes, I'm sure yesterday.
They are moving out to laser, a sharp laser that just need to. So, but we in Africa, where are we? People are talking about fifth generation, sixth generation. Have you looked at our fighter jets that we're using to fight terrorism in Africa? Have you looked at our helicopters that we're using to fight terrorism in Africa? And here we expect to win terrorism in Africa? Do we even use the unmanned drones to fight terrorism in Africa? But you look at the helicopter that we use today, and the helicopter that were used during the Second World War, First World, they are obsolete. When they send them, and when we receive them here, we're happy with joy. We bring cameras and say, oh, we have received war equipment from France. Come on, we'll film. Why is it that they cannot give us the Apache helicopters? They use the Apache helicopters to fight terrorism.
Why should they give us?
No, I'm just saying.
Don't we have money?
No, I'm just saying that if we were to, because those things are not given for free.
Yeah, but why don't we buy them?
No, we are not poor, but we have a system where we have leadership that doesn't think generational. They think monumental. Look at we would take a loan from France or let's say China. China President Xi Jinping is how many years? 70-something years. He gives you a loan that he knows that China will recover that loan in the next 80 years. 80 years plus this year, he will not be alive. They have sat and they have given you the loan. But you who receive the loan, you don't also think that that loan is for generation to come. You will squander it and you go for more. And they give you loan, they know that it is generation that will collect the loan. The loan will be collected in the next 100 years. They will not be alive. That is a leadership that thinks generational. And that's why we had just a few presidents in Africa that was thinking generational, like Gaddafi. That was thinking about the next generation, not the next election. In Africa, we always think about the next election, the next election, the next election. That is our problem. Have you looked at the way we calibrate our streets in Africa? Let me use Cameroon for example. We close the roads, we close it down. In fact, when there's a small space at the road, we see that like, this is wastage. Let's put a store there, let's put a store. You calculate just that monumental 50,000 than to redefine that road. So that's why, to answer your question, if there is a bomb, or if Africa was to involve, let's say Africa, the only nations in Africa that can manage to do this is the Maghreb nations. The Maghreb nations, to some extent, who fought war. You know, the Maghreb nations that fought Israel, the Yom Kippur War. You had Egypt as they fought Israel, so they were able to a certain level. They have that kind of defense system. But when you come to sub-Saharan Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, Central Africa, you move towards the sect, it is empty. You can move. Can we even detect mixer? Can we even detect who is on our airspace with accuracy? Because there are some drone. US is talking about the B-2 bomber. That they cannot be protected. You cannot even detect it using the radar. The B1 cannot be detected. Imagine that in future there is a conflict between Cameroon or there's a conflict between Nigeria and Egypt. Can we stand? Because now the war is America is using by the air. America has not landed any boot on the ground.
America and
Israel, they have not landed any boot on the ground. They're using the air superiority. And that is what is the new mod in the war. China is building robots. We watched the other day Chinese robot doing kung fu, real-time kung fu. Imagine there is a war and they send that robot on the battlefield.
They drop them.
They drop those robots on the battlefield. We Africa, we are thinking about sending our children to go and do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. Look at our educational system. Why the rest of the world is moving? Conventional warfare. People are talking about laser. Do we even have an aircraft carrier that we can defend our maritime? Because the aircraft carrier can also enable you to defend your space. Do we have aircraft carrier?
Yeah, but it's, what does this tell us in Africa? Well, you see what is happening in the Middle East. There is a clear. It's like a festival that is ongoing to showcase air power. Qatar says I've taken down 2 jets from Iran. The United Arab Emirates, a young nation, says, this is what I am doing. I am ready for the... And you follow their Minister of Defense. Yes. He enumerates what they can do at this level, very advanced technology. Do you have the impression that we are working in this direction in Africa?
Before I come to your question, it's unfortunate I have to agree with my panelist in the U.S. He said Iran is a terrorist state. And I think America is more a terrorist state than Iran. I'm afraid. I know you live in the U.S., but if you go down history and look at the number of people that America has, countries that have attacked without justification and killed people, if you go down history, look at the number of people that Israel have attacked and killed, how many people, there will be far terrorist states than Iran. Nobody is perfect, but to just you say Iran is a terrorist state, I think it's an overstatement. You should first watch the country in which you are living. Look at their history and look at the many people that have killed in the history. Look at what Israel has done to other human beings. If you do a head count, you realize that the what you call terrorism of Iran has not yet started. Coming back to your question, Mr. Kum, Africa, vis-a-vis this war, it's like, I don't even know why you should ask that question, because, it is
like
just got that.
Champions League and interquarter?
No, that is even better.
Okay.
Champions League and interquarter is better because, like Javi said, we are 60, I don't know, 60 or 50 independent. We are like babies. There's nothing that we can show off for. If we cannot provide basic necessities in life, water, electricity, hospital, and then what you are talking about, war ammunition is expensive. And even if you provide that money, some few people, that means they will eat it. Since in Africa, people who have been given posts of responsibility in government, they eat money and nothing is done to them. Governments don't punish government officials that embezzle. If you provide even money to buy all those, what Jarvis is calling laser, what all of that, one person will embezzle that money and nothing will happen. We've seen big projects in Africa where there's a project that the government borrows money from everywhere and put the money there, and if people embezzle it, and nobody ever asks them why the projects failed, nothing. So Africa is not, I mentioned something at the beginning of this discourse. I said, we may think that this is very far. And the African leaders, watch out. You may think this war is very far. It is getting closer to your doorsteps than you ever thought. We understand most of you are very old, you don't care, you can die now, but what about your generation, the countries you've led? History will go down. It will go down history. That you failed to put the mechanism in place to protect your own countries. The Westerners, the Caucasians are saying it. It is time for them to come back and recolonize Africa. How can we really resist the recolonization of Africa? I don't think we can. I think it will be an easy walk. And that is why I think that Africa have not used the resources that God placed in their disposal the right way. And honestly, if you can conduct a vote in Africa, because we are for the past 6 years we have failed to do the necessary. Even if there's money now, even if there's a government now that wants to do it, the priority will not be investing in war equipment, no. The priority will be investing in roads, electricity, water, housing, hospitals, basic necessities for human beings. By the time we get to the level where we invest in war equipment, it will be very far. So when we talk about Africa, we are at the mercy of God. It is just like COVID. When I sat down and look at the impact of COVID in the West, these are the West, Europe, and America have where ultra-modern hospitals with ultra-modern equipment. The number of people that died in this developed world, if that COVID had 1/10 of it had crossed in Africa, it would have wiped out the whole of Africa, because we don't have anything in our hospitals. So we are at the mercy of God, and we hope that God alone will save us. Because if you come to this world technology, I'm afraid, Mr. Kum, next time don't ask about Africa, but when it comes to world technology, because we have virtually nothing to show off for.
We have nothing, but I'm sure the military of South Africa is quite advanced. The military of Egypt is also
militaries and South Africa.
Yes, they're quite advanced, and we cannot also undermine what Africa can show for. But let's look at what is unfolding in the Middle East and its impacts on the African economy. Doctor, I'll start with you. should Africans today suffer from what is happening in the Middle East from the economic standpoint because we are dependent solely on the global economy like we saw when the Russia-Ukraine war started? Should we at this point still be dependent on what happens out of Africa? Should we not be self-sufficient today?
Self-sufficient. I think that you've called that. Unfortunately, we have not learned anything so far as the war between Ukraine and Russia is concerned. We've still continued on the same trajectory, and here we are. The Middle East alone control one of the most, sensitive artery for global economy. That will be, the Straits of Hormuz. That alone carries almost 20% of all the world's oil that passes through, that particular artery. The conflict erupting right now in the Middle East basically will push the prices of oil up. And if you look at the indexes, the prices of crude oil are actually going up. What that means for Africa is this. Many African countries are net importers of oil, and unfortunately, because of that, transportation costs will rise, electricity costs will rise, and eventually, even the African farmers will feel it. So here is the problem. Africa does not control of but a consumer will feel the dollar, the prices of oil, whether we like it or not. It happened during during the conflicts with Russia. And now we're basically facing it. I think that we also must be able to, during that conflict with Russia, one of the major problems was the supply chain route. We need to get this, because for anything to get to Africa, especially from Asia, that is the corridor that it comes in. So the war is already affecting global shipping routes, which is what's happening now, and obviously the supply chains too are suffering. The only thing that I think that absolutely can be able to help us is the fact that we need to start thinking about making sure the continent in itself, it's literally lays with a lot of trade route within the continent, and are based upon our geography and how our continental landscape, especially within Sub-Saharan Africa, is. We need to not, the maritime will be great, but we need to have systems, that crisscross the continent, especially from east to west, and ways in which those of us in Southern Africa can be able to maximize this route, because the northern belt of the Sahara, they are doing well. But we need to be able to make sure that I don't think how we get through this if we do not build the infrastructure that we need at home. We must be able to build just on the continent of Africa that will basically help us either to make sure that our ship vessels avoid wars. Those boys in Europe will continue shooting things down, that we're able to find alternate routes. We must be able to make sure also once you have an increase in cost of shipping and because of war, one of the things you have to factor cost of insurance costs absolutely skyrocket. Then because also shipping routes become quite longer, and that doesn't sit well. So we have to be able to find ways in which we can be able to work this thing out. That is the most important thing I see as for whatever it is that is happening in Europe. We must be able to prepare our own shipping routes. We must prepare our own intercontinental routes within the continent, so that we can be able to distribute goods within the country without any issues.
Okay, we are talking about fuel prices increasing in the world market. Should we also feel that in our economies in Africa? Because when there is fuel price increase, Africans should catch in on that.
In all fairness, we should not be talking about the being affected when it comes to fuel prices if things were normal, if we had a normal leadership across Africa.
No, what I mean here is that now that the prices of fuel has increased in the world market, it means that we are also going to make gains, and that should be reflected in our economies.
We are going to make gains, but the truth is, do we refine? Do we refine?
No, I don't think we're making any gains.
We will not make gains.
We don't make gains because in this oil business, foreign companies have come and signed this with us. In some they say you have 5% of production. So when there's an oil well in Cameroon, and Cameroon has 5%, and that country has 95%. When there's money in that business, it is the 95% person who that makes gain. No, our 5% will virtually mean nothing.
So instead, we will feel the incident of the increase. Because the truth is, most of our countries have the crude, but we don't refine.
Yes, we don't refine.
We foreign take the crude, we give to this foreign company. Sometimes they take and go and refine, and they sell back to us.
If you look at the percentage, not go to you, Jarvis, the percentage, I think Africans have a problem, Mr. Kumi.
Big one. Where's the problem?
How can you have natural resources in your country? You have the potential to set up refineries or processing factories to process that. For 50 years, you decide not to do anything. Somebody is coming and taking the resources and taking 90% and give you 10%, and you celebrate. If you look at the mineral extraction contracts in Africa, there's hardly an African country that's 10%.
Yes.
It's very difficult to find an African country with 10% of the minerals. Means that they also have less than 10%. 3.5, 4.5, 5%. Then 95% goes to the foreign company. That's why you see, when a few countries in Africa, like what these guys doing this side, that's why they are putting 25 billion tax on their head for people to kill them. Because these guys have nationality. The other day, the president, I read the post, the president of Chad was asking where Traore is getting all this money to do all these projects within a very short time. Now, we all know where he's getting his money. We all know where Niger is getting his money. The French used to take 0.8 cents for 1 kilogram of uranium. Now they sell the world market for 200 euros.
So they sell, just look at.
So why would the money not come?
Now, the issue is, the issue is, Mr. Ko, if you look at what Mr. Patasi was explaining, it is the scenario that plays across Africa when it comes to the mineral sectors.
Yes.
Look at Nigeria. Nigeria has a lot of oil wells. It is of recent that Dangote entered into it and started refining oil that they are buying. But let me tell you, he has increased his price. He announced that the price will increase. Now, why is it increasing on Nigerians? Whereas it's being extracted in Nigeria, refined in Nigeria. Why should Nigerians buy in the price of world market? Because other factors have added. The materials that they are supposed to get for refineries are coming from abroad.
But we need to also investigate whether most of what he is refining is not bought from
that's
the
what
world
I'm saying.
market, because
that's why I'm saying that the materials.
Maybe most of the crude he refines is bought from the world market and not necessarily from Nigeria. Because take the example of Sonara here. Sonara is a refinery, but most of what was
being
refined here,
the crude is not from Cameroon.
It's not from Cameroon.
Yeah, but with Nigeria is a bit different, because if you look at Nigeria potential for production, Nigeria has it. In fact, in Africa, in the world, Nigeria is top among the world. Nigeria competes with the Middle East.
I think 2021 they used to be around the 4th or the 5th.
Yes, the world.
Oil reserves in the world.
Oil reserves in the world. We are not looking. We are not. They are far.
I don't know.
But now look at. If you look at the Niger Delta, for example, there are local crude refinery in the Niger Delta. Now, if you look at the production capacity of Nigeria, it will affect us in one or two ways, Mr. Kum, even if we can refine. The truth is, what the equipment that we use to refine, where do they come from? We don't have heavy industries in Africa. They will import them. And when you import, it passes the Strait of Hormuz. There's an increase in the prices of those things. So the incident of this will fall or not. But if we had a normal continent where our leaders are pragmatic, like what the Sahel guys are doing now, is that if you want an extraction, come and do the refinery in my country. Yes. Because when you want to do the refinery in my country, at the end of the day, you import those materials and you create jobs, and I'll buy less. And at the end of the day, the economy boom. But what happened is that we get the crude. All of these companies, they have about 90% of the foreign companies have 90% interest of your company in your country.
Yes, of your product.
Of your product. 10% only goes to your country. How do you expect? And they determine the prices, how your people buy. They buy from the international market. Look at cocoa prices, for example. Look at cocoa. What's happening now to cocoa?
Cameroon should be processing cocoa to finish product.
Why can we not process cocoa?
Yes.
But we are selling,
And now the cocoa farmers are feeling the impact because we don't have the companies that process from every sector of cocoa. So at the end of the day, it falls back to the concept of the country. If you don't have leadership that are pragmatic, that decide on processing, Mr. Kum, we don't control what we eat and we produce what we don't eat. And that is the problem, because if you produce what you eat and you eat what you produce, your economy will survive. All the things we produce in the form of raw materials. When they go, they use it.
You don't make money in raw materials.
You don't make money in raw materials.
Value chain that you make
because money. If this phone like this, it comes from rubber, a good number of stuff. Now, if you had opened a company that process, let's say, cocoa, that process chocolate or whatever, human resource students will have jobs. The legal students will have jobs because those companies will need legal representative. The transport sector will have jobs.
The engineers in the industry.
Engineers will have jobs. The people who are in charge of the agricultural sector will have jobs. Now, but when you don't take the cocoa and sell, you have exported all the jobs because with all the money you have exported. So that they give you is paper. The amount they give you to take that raw material is paper. It's just paper. It has no impact on your economy. You take that same paper and go and buy the finished product of chocolate. You buy mango, you buy this, you import them back. But if you have the chocolate factory in your company, you have empowered a good number of sectors. So to answer your question, unfortunately,
I mean, you know, the other day we had this issue about the port, and I was like 150 years existence of a port, and you're outsourcing a scanner, so we come and scan. in 10 years, you can take over management of your container terminal. You can take over all those things as port operations, generating all the revenue to that port. So we have been, I don't know, our leaders have been made to believe that they cannot do anything. They can only outsource everything. And in that, you cannot make money. Money is in value chain. Take anything. Money is in value chain, not in the sales of raw material. Take any raw material. Like you say, okay, no timber leaves Cameroon. If you want wooden floors, like in Europe, you process oil in Cameroon, you package the wooden floor into cartons, and you are shipping them as wooden floor to the European market. You buy as wooden floor.
The students of logistics and transport have jobs.
If you want wooden doors, everything is processed in Cameroon. You package as wooden doors. You say like IKEA in Sweden, a very famous furniture. A lot of us know, very famous furniture company in Sweden. You package it. I mean, every Cameroonian youth will get jobs because we have a lot of raw material that we are exporting. Just put a ban. If I were to rule Cameroon, I would say no exportation of any raw material. Every raw material in Cameroon is processed to the last finished product. I pass it to Parliament and I sit down. In the next 5 years, all these youths who in the streets, you will be surprised at the jobs that will come. The white man knows. That's why the British institution after the Second World War, they made it in a way that we only plan those things that they export. It is a strategy in geopolitics. They make sure that we are exporting our cocoa, our coffee, and everything, and we are not doing anything important.
And they process the
oil, they process it, and then they send the finished product to us at about 10 times the price. Okay. And for 60 years, our leaders cannot. We have a leadership problem in Africa. These old people who believe that things are working there. We're in a new generation. And I think that we have to start thinking that we have to start taking back some of these contracts that we have given to foreigners to manage, and we have to start managing them. You can't imagine all simple contracts are managed by foreigners. Come on, I mean, you are exporting cocoa, exporting coffee, something you can process in your own country. Why can you not process it? How much does it cost you? Only Africans. Look at how Dangote did it. He has one of the most ultra-modern refineries in the world. That's an African doing it in Africa. So if you open this opportunity for Africans to open these factories and run them for some time and get, you get Africans who invest in it. But if you bring up the idea, no, I'm afraid you have a lot of, how I used to say, there are a lot of crocodiles in the water.
Okay, now let's get back to Dr. Stanley. How might this conflict reshape global security agendas, including nuclear non-proliferation and regional power dynamics?
I think honestly that what's happening right now in Europe has brought us to a place where we think more about where we really want to go, so far as nations that are permitted to have nuclear weapons and nations that are not permitted to have nuclear weapons, and what that even means. If you see countries like France basically think they have in their stockpile and thinking about increasing it, it's because they're looking at the dynamics being played out in the world stage, and they realize we need to be able to do something a little bit more different than what we've always done. That bill is, as far as I'm concerned, if you're asking me what's my assessment, I'm also going to say that I think on the continent of Africa, we need to begin to increase security in ways that we have never done so before. We must be able to build out a robust force. If the AU was supposed to be, there should be a robust force on the continent of Africa that is funded by everybody else, by all the member states, so that we can be able to do what we need to do if it be called, at least not maintain security with, but to fend off any other aggressor that might be coming in from out of the continent. Again, especially when it came into the conversation we're having when it came to the issue of cocoa. If you look at what is happening around the world so far as cocoa is concerned, it is quite shameful. And almost 2 decades ago, I was in a place called Hershey, Pennsylvania. The best chocolate manufactured in America, a company in a city in Pennsylvania called Hershey. Have this chocolate brand that is called Hershey. Hershey in Pennsylvania, they do not farm cocoa. But the GDP alone of Hershey as we speak today is close to about 12 billion US dollars. They decide exactly how much cocoa is being sold in the world market. They decide exactly what's happening with cocoa on the coast. If you look at the GDP of Ivory Coast as a nation, it's close to about 80 billion. Ghana's GDP is close to about 75 billion. Cameroon's GDP close to about 54 billion. But a single company, one thing that is only in manufacturing chocolate, its GDP is actually 12 billion US dollars. That tells you something, especially when it comes to what it means about conversion. What we need to be able to do on the continent, especially once we have to get our raw materials and then convert them and be able to, to ship that stuff out. I believe the capital we need is actually on the continent of Africa. Recent studies by Reuters basically show that if you look at the amount of money that is available on the continent of Africa that people can actually use to invest in Africa, we're looking at close to about 4 trillion US dollars. And this is actually in like pension bonds and banks. We're looking at about 4 trillion. But the problem that I have, and this is one of the heart on the continent, is the fact that Africa is suffering from a trust problem. So we have young Africans who have brilliant ideas to be able to get into the marketplace, either in tech, in agriculture, in mining, but because the economy is not structured in such a way that we can be able to have money, lend money to these young startups who are small to medium-sized enterprises who have been doing what they're supposed to do. It's very difficult to basically get them, the money they need so that they can get the zones in which they are in. My alternative, I think that, and this should be something that every single African basically desire, is we have to find a way in which we basically grow up our local economies by mechanizing whatever we can mechanize. And just like my co-panelists, which I agree with, to make sure that it's totally impossible for you to ship anything of the continent of Africa if at least it has not gone through 2 to 3 stages of conversion before we shipping that stuff out. I think that would be a very good place for us to start. We can't have a blanketed approach where we just basically cut things out, but at least we must be able to have first, second layer of conversion before we ship things out. I think that would be my take on that.
Okay, that is starting everything in Africa and finishing it. That is value chain development in Africa. I think this is a topic we should handle in the days ahead. But where do you see this conflict by next week? Do you see the United Nations forcing the hands of those fighting? Do you see Russia and China also forcing the hands, or it's left to America and Russia to decide? And Iran also, because Iran may decide to say, okay, let us get back to the
I see this conflict
discussion.
extending far than what it is today. Look like what happened in Ukraine. We thought it was just going to be a walk in the park, a 3-day conflict. And at the end of the day, we are counting 4 years for there. You know, it's easy to start a war. It takes a few to start a war, but it takes a community to end it. That you were talking about this nation, UN forcing and China forcing Iran to be on the table. But the truth is, it is also a payback time for Russia to pay back Europe, because Europe and the rest were arming Ukraine to fight Russia. And you know that if you look at the economic policy right now, Europe and US have invested more in Ukraine, and their economy is being affected. Now, if there is a new front that Russia is not fighting but is providing equipment, it will further drain Europe and Russia also, because now very few, how many media were talking about Russia-Ukraine conflict within this past how many days? Have you heard anything about Russia-Ukraine conflict? It's like, in fact, Zelensky, who was the most important person on earth, is no longer important again. Now, this is what China and Russia will do. China will just simply get its raw material from Russia, fuel, because it gets more fuel from Iran. It can get it from Russia through North Korea. There's already a route that they can get the raw material. So what I see from next week is that this war will extend, just to let you know, to show that we extend. France has moved its Charles de Gaulle aircraft carrier to the Mediterranean. The only one they have, they have moved it to the Mediterranean. Britain, as I'm talking to you now, there's a breaking news. Spain that refused America from using their air base has not accepted. Just now that they have accepted. White House has released a statement. Spain has accepted.
Because of the 10% tariff.
So at the end of the day, what will happen is...
there is information that the French plane had to gun down.
Yes.
In the United Arab Emirates.
Yeah, it was used to gun down the Iranian drones. Yeah. You understand? So what we will see is that the next phase is Trump will want to capitalize on ground troops, but not American ground troops. That is what happened in Libya. To arm, because he said Iranians should take over their country. So how will Iranians take over their country? America cannot force a regime change from the sky. From the sky can only weaken them. But now, they have talked about, there's a report from New York Times. New York Times says Donald Trump has proposed the Kurdish fighters to give them arms such that they will have their own state. But Turkey will not accept it. Because if they are to accept it, Turkey, that's breaking down Turkey, and Turkey is a NATO member. So at the end of the day, what we see, it will end like Libya. That's my conclusion on this. It will end like Libya, because this is another proxy war. Russia will be happy to drain US and drain Europe. All eyes now are no longer in Ukraine. They continue to do whatever they are doing in Ukraine. Because everybody in the international media, everybody has switched their attention to Iran. And it will pull over for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and 5 weeks. Hopefully, you start hearing now, before we start going back to Russia, Ukraine, that when we are already used to the war, adapted to the war. Iran itself is a very stubborn country. Because you have, when we are talking about this, we should also look at socio-demographic factors. The Muslim person believes that if they die for a just cause, they will go to heaven. So if you engage a kind of a man in war, the man doesn't fear death. He sees death as a justification, as a trophy. So we will have Russia, China will be given. How do you expect? Okay, you see some of the things that the successes to some extent rendered by Iran. Where they get the air support and the coordination from? Who gives the air support coordination? Who gives them the specific target? Despite the fact that America has been able to take down some of their air defense system and their military command, how are they still succeeding to target with precision? How? Through who gives them this command? They are getting it from their ally.
Yeah, but they had all of this information.
Yeah, no, they are getting it from
they have spies. Every nation has.
They have, but
those spies are supposed.
They have, like, look like what
Ukraine.
Let me just what Ukraine succeeded in getting some of these Russian targets was from America intelligence. Okay. The same thing will play.
Jarvis just touched on something. I want to ask something. You see, people thought that American and Israeli intelligence was very, very strong to detect the Iranian leader and just strike him the first 1 or 2 days. No, that guy decided to die. He would have kept himself hidden. There's a statement I read somewhere that he said he will not hide until Iranians have a place all Iranians have a place to hide. And he knew they were going to. They said they were going to come and kill him. He stayed. His death is a unifier for Iranians, for Iranian fighters. And be careful. This war, you're asking about time. Be very careful. This war may take far longer. The worst America will do and Israel will be to drop an atomic bomb in Tehran, and that will not end this war. Mark, go and write it down today. An atomic bomb in Tehran is not going to end. Iran will not surrender the next day. This war will go on for as long as, because these are people whom the death of their leader have written war on their brain. And when you write war on your brain, no weapon can eliminate it. So we are looking up to a very long war, a far longer war than the Americans thought it was going to be, strategic strikes and then they will end. No. I think that it was going to take far longer than we ever envisaged.
What should, according to you, should be done to bring the war to an end? America should walk out as well as Israel?
Well, it's easy to start a war, but difficult to end. I think that the mistake has been committed. I don't know who they can use to convince Iran now to go for a ceasefire, because I was made to understand that I read a post where they said the Italian Prime Minister was asked to step in to talk to Iran so that they could negotiate, and the Iranians said negotiation time is over. I don't know how true that is. You know, these social media things that you read. So I don't know what it takes to stop the war, but it would take to talk to an Iranian ally, a convincing ally, to talk to Iran to find the need to sit back on the table. And the bad thing about all of this is that the United States foreign policy, if I were a leader of a country, I would never trust any deal I have with America. Because if you go down history, 40 years ago, United States had a deal with China on Hong Kong. United States have breached that. They had a deal with North Korea on the nuclear program. They have breached that. The United States, they make promises in this and they never respect them. So it is very difficult for any country that knows the history, that has the track record of United States.
It looks like you have a particular problem with the
No, I don't have any particular problem. I mean, is what I'm saying true? That's the question you should ask. Is it the truth? Is it true that these things were done and the United States breached them?
Which country does not breach agreements? Which country is saintly on earth?
No country is a saint. But I'm saying that to make a deal with somebody now, you know that he made the former 4Ds and break it.
Is it because these agreements were breached that a threat should be made on Israel for annihilation?
Of course not. I've never supported any threat on Israel. I've never supported, don't get me wrong, I don't support any threat on Israel. I believe that whatever threat was made, there was a way to disarm Iran. A peaceful way. This is my philosophy. There was a peaceful way to disarm Iran, and Iran cooperated on that peaceful way, but we abandoned it. This is my point. I'm not saying that Iran has the right to threaten Israel. No. But anything that you do, there's always a way that you can solve that problem peacefully. When you choose war is an alternative to another method. And I'm saying that it would have been better if we had followed the peaceful resolution of this than taken to war. That's what I'm saying. So for me, to end this war, you are not sure that the United States is prepared to end the war now. You're not sure that Israel is prepared to end the war now. You're not sure Iran is prepared to end the war. So it will take some mediators like South Africa opted. But South Africa opted, I'm not sure that Israel wants to listen, because Israel looks at South Africa as the only country that condemned them when they were modern Palestinians. So it takes some very reliable Iranian allies to convince Iran
to go back to the table. Russia and China?
Yeah.
Now, Dr. Stanley, do you also understand with Mr. Tazi, who thinks that America was supposed not to engage a war at this time, but should have looked at other alternatives to disarm Iran?
I think that number one, Jewish soldiers, Israeli soldiers were not responsible for killing of Palestinians in Gaza. That's war. And what was the problem? When you take military installations and you put them in hospital, you put them, children gather. And from that vantage point, happen. It's so interesting that we basically push every single thing as left-wing thinking, over the throats of what is happening so far as Israel is concerned. I'm not speaking for Israel. I'm just a little bit, I think there's something to be said, especially if we are really trying to build any front, or we are trying to be able to do anything that is meaningful in this war or whatever it is. We must do so on the basis of truth, reality. Am I saying that America has been the set on the world stage? No, there have been some very bad players, I think that what happened during the Gulf War was a disaster. In the number of weapons of the Gulf War, weapons of mass destruction, there was nothing there. I think that what Barack Hussein did in Libya is quite shameful. I get that, but at some point in time, you need to also be able to start asking yourself, do you stand? What's the truth? What's the truth? What's happening? So I don't know exactly how this thing ends. You're asking, and so I can give you the playbook. I think America is going to walk away quietly. I think that I'm interested in Iran was to make sure that they basically topple the head, which is Trump calls the head of the snake, and also make sure that they destroy the nuclear program that they have going on. That too has been achieved. Now, whatever stuff is happening is just to make sure that they cripple the system as much as they can. There has been calls for Iranians, both inside and outside of Iran. If you look at the videos, there have been celebration of Iranians around the world, most of whom has been in exile, celebrating, celebrating what America has done and Israel has done. And there are also factions out in and outside also, quite also what's going on. So it's quite polarizing to see, but we will see exactly what happens, in the subsequent weeks coming. But I think the playbook is simple. Israel is not going to have full soldiers in Iran. America will have no soldiers in Iran. So to basically speak of who is basically going to be running will have to be in the hands of the Iranians, and now up to them. Everything we do now will just be pure speculation. The reality is that the Iranians will have to speak for themselves.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Stanley, for accepting to be part of tonight's edition of the program. Okay, network issues there. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kum, and thanks to all those who took our time to participate. I want to also let them understand that the best way for Africa to change its form of leadership is to add value to our raw materials. If we don't do that value transformation, I bet you we'll have our sons and daughters will die at the Mediterranean, at the desert, and the rest, because we are exporting the jobs. And we take the paper that they give us in raw materials and to still give them back. In fact, we give everything and we end up getting nothing.
Okay. Thank you to Mr. Tazi for
coming.
Thank you
very much, Mr. Kum. To Africans, I want to say that when something happens like this with your neighbor, it's for you to learn a lesson. This war is sent a very strong message to the African leaders. And African leaders have to start thinking on how to resist the recolonization of Africa. And you have to start strategizing. Unfortunately, you people have decided to depend only on your enemy to defend yourself. So you have to start strategizing on how to defend yourself outside the support, without the support of your enemy. Because if you don't do that, then you have virtually sold the entire African continent to the invaders, because they are preparing to come back. Watch out.
We want to thank you both for coming, and also to you, Dr. Stanley, for participating. Thank you, Eli, for production, and to all of you for watching. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.